The question of freedom and determinism is one of the oldest and most debated in philosophy. It involves the discussion of whether human beings have free will, which is the ability to choose between different courses of action independently of any prior conditions, or whether all our actions are predetermined by a chain of causal events. Determinism, which is involved in this reflection, is the theory that all events, including human actions, are determined by previous causes. There are different forms of determinism, the main ones being causal determinism, which suggests that every event is the result of previous events and the laws of nature, and if we knew all the initial conditions and all the natural laws, we could predict any future event. Theological determinism, which claims that everything is predestined by a deity or supernatural force, and biological determinism, which holds the idea that our behaviors are determined by our genetics and biology. Free will is the ability to make choices that are not predetermined by past events or natural laws. Advocates of free will argue that humans have a special capacity for decision-making that allows them to act independently of any deterministic forces. In libertarian free will, the conception is that to have free will, a person must be able to act differently even if all previous conditions are the same. This view implies that determinism is false. In the idea of compatibilist free will, it is redefined to be compatible with determinism. They argue that a person can act freely if their actions are the result of their own desires, intentions, and deliberations, even if these are determined by previous causes. Libertarians believe that free will is incompatible with determinism and that humans possess a special capacity for agency that is not determined by prior events. Prominent philosophers in this line include Robert Kane, who argues that free decisions involve a type of indeterminism in deliberation and suggests that there are moments of genuine indecision where the choice is not determined by past events, and Roderick Chisholm, who argues that agents are prime causes of their actions, capable of initiating new causal chains that are not completely determined by previous events. The discussion of freedom and determinism often divides into compatibilism and incompatibilism. Compatibilists believe that free will and determinism are not mutually exclusive, arguing that it is possible to act freely even if our actions are determined by previous causes. Seeing freedom as the capacity to act according to one's will, it is argued that no action is free if it is performed according to the agent's will even if that will is somehow determined. In moral responsibility, according to compatibilists, we can be morally responsible for our actions if those actions reflect our desires and intentions, even if these desires and intentions are causally determined. David Hume argued that freedom should be understood as the ability to act according to one's own will without external restrictions, and that this is compatible with determinism. Daniel Dennett advocates a sophisticated form of compatibilism, arguing that evolution and biology have endowed us with behavioral control mechanisms that allow us to be morally responsible even in a deterministic universe. Harry Frankfurt introduced the concept of second-order volitions, where freedom of will involves the ability to reflect on and approve one's own desires. This allows for a compatibilist view of free will. Hard determinists believe that determinism is true and therefore free will does not exist. They argue that moral responsibility is no illusion. Notable philosophers in this reflection include Galen Strawson, who argues that moral responsibility is incoherent because we cannot be the ultimate cause of our actions, our decisions always derive from past events over which we have no control. Our everyday experience seems to indicate that we can make genuine choices between different options, making us feel that we have control over our actions. Moral responsibility seems to presuppose free will. If people cannot act differently, it seems unfair to hold them accountable for their actions. Human creativity and the ability to produce new ideas and solutions seem to indicate a form of agency that is not completely determined. If all actions result from a causal chain of events, it seems that free will is no illusion. Every decision we make can be traced back to previous causes. Neuroscience research suggests that many of our behaviors and decisions are influenced by automatic and subconscious brain processes, questioning the notion of conscious and free choice. If moral responsibility requires us to be the ultimate origin of our actions, it seems impossible since our actions always derive from prior states and influences over which we have no control. The question of free will touches on deep issues about the nature of human agency and our understanding of morality and responsibility. Some implications include debates such as ethics and justice, where the understanding of free will influences how we approach issues of ethics, justice, and punishment. If free will does not exist, justice systems that rely on personal responsibility need to be reassessed. The belief in free will reinforces the notion of personal autonomy and self-determination, central values in many modern societies, and scientific investigation, especially in neuroscience and psychology, continues to inform and challenge our philosophical conceptions of free will. However, now, if taken as oppositions, the idea of free will, if all actions result from a causal chain of events, seems to be an illusion. Every decision we make can be traced back to previous causes. Neuroscience research suggests that many of our behaviors and decisions are influenced by automatic and subconscious brain processes, questioning the notion of conscious and free choice. If moral responsibility requires us to be the ultimate origin of our actions, it seems impossible, as our actions always derive from prior states and influences over which we have no control. Now, based on such concepts, I invite you to reflect: if all our actions are determined by previous events and natural laws, how can we be considered morally responsible for them? Does free will require the ability to act completely independently of external and internal influences? Or can we be free even when influenced by these factors? How does the notion of free will influence our perception of guilt and regret? If we believe we have free will, does that change the way we make decisions in our daily lives? How? This was today's reflection. If you liked and understood the concepts, like the video and share it with your fellow philosophers. Keep philosophizing. We'll see you in the next video, and remember, it's not enough to acquire wisdom, you must use it.